All righty. Cool. So this is Coach Alex and Coach John with Ignite Fitness. Some of the head coaches, our little podcast show that we got going. This is going to be more informative for our team coaches on this one that are working with us on Ignite. We're going to talk as coaches in the industry, recover strategies, as well as different workout modalities that we can utilize for safe workouts, as well as coach specific stuff like roll form, like form checks and things like that, and educating clients and when to refer out based off of their injury. So again, this is Coach Alex and Coach John. I'm gonna let Coach John take the floor and introduce himself for you guys, and we'll go from there.
It's all me, huh? All right. My name is John Kelly. I've been training since 2008. Couple of different certifications in different fields, specialties, and worked with quite a number of clients, a couple of hundred over the years. So got a little bit of experience here and there. A little bit. Hopefully I can bring to it.
You got the old school OG John over here, man.
OG, I don't know about OG. I'm feeling old, but
I've seen the bodybuilding pictures of you, man. Like I know what's up.
Where the hell would you have seen those? Come on,
it's on your what is that, the icon, right?
I'm gonna have to fix that.
Yeah, it's a good one, man. It's a good one. But, Coach John, obviously well versed in many topics, as well as worked with a lot of people with a lot of, especially with this topic, right? A lot of different people with injuries. You've worked with elderly people. I think you're certified for that as well. So, it's going to be a good little episode we got here. Again, Coach Alex here, the other voice you guys hear. I've been an athlete my whole life. Grew up playing ice hockey. I was one of the weirdos from SoCal that grew up playing ice hockey during the Mighty Ducks era and Wayne Gretzky and all that stuff. And I took that as far as I could go. And I've always loved working out. Always been a great mental reprieve for me. And I found the physical benefits were secondary. I found that early on, right? Which a lot of people find later on in their working out. Usually it's for aesthetics first, and then for the mental reprieve. Me, it was mental reprieve, then aesthetics. So I truly am addicted to this fitness, all types of fitness, right? And I also have different certifications through NASM, CPT, CNC, CrossFit, all these different things. So been doing this it's a lifelong journey for me, right? So I'm excited to be here, and also I'm excited to be with and learn from some people like Coach John over here too, who has way more experience than I do, but I'm always learning and always growing, and we'll see where this goes. So cool, thanks. So our main discussion, we're going to get into this. We're really going to dive into 3 segments here. We're going to talk about common injuries and their prevention. We're going to talk about recovery strategies, and we're going to talk about adapting workouts during injury recovery. So let's start. We'll start with the top one, John. I'll let you start off. It's going to be common injuries. We're going to talk a little bit about lower back pain. We're going to go over 3 today. Lower back pain, very common one, shoulder injuries, and knee pain. Let's start with lower back pain and talk about how that's caused, right? Where it can come from, prevention, and then like your personal opinion, different people you've worked with and that have had that injury or ailment, and how we've been able to help it out. So.
Oh, you want me to start?
Yeah, you kick it off, man.
Lower back injury is very common when you consider. I think I came across a statistic one time. Don't quote me on this. I think they said 75% of the population has a lower disc issue. Some of them are aware of it and some of them are not. It just depends on whether the disc, if it's slipped or shifted, if it's impinging on the thecal sac of the nervous system. If it's not, they may never know it. But if it is, they're going to know by way of a lot of pain, tingling, numbness in the lower extremities, depending on where it's at. If it's in the lower back, it'll be from the waist down. If it's in the cervical area of the neck, it's going to be from that point down. It's probably one of the most common ones I know I've seen. I personally suffer from it myself, so I've had to obviously change my training quite a bit to accommodate for the pain management and so as not to increase the severity of the problems that I have. Mine's been down in L4, L5, S1. It's a little tougher to get them in the thoracic area in the center of the spine, but it's not impossible. I've seen plenty of folks to do that. Right. I think probably in my mind, the 2 most common ways are lack of proper form. I think that's the number one thing. I think that's going to be the number one thing for a lot of these injuries is the lack of proper form. But maintaining neutral spine is going to be so incredibly important. and engaging your core muscles when you're lifting. And I don't care if you're doing just biceps or if you're doing deep knee squats. If you're engaging that core area, your transverse abdominal muscles is it's like a girdle of muscles that go around. So when you engage your abdominal muscles, as if somebody was going to punch you in the gut and you wanted to take that hit, you'd engage those abdominal muscles. Those transverse abdominal muscles around to the backside, around your spinal column, will engage, squeeze, and to solidify that area to protect it. So if you're not doing that and you're not keeping your lower lumbar arched in a neutral position, you're opening up that door for a serious injury, especially when you lift heavy. And the other added problem on that is if you don't breathe. If you hold your breath, for example, if you're going to do a squat, you squat down and you hold your breath as you're pushing yourself up and your spine is not in a neutral position, you instantly build up internal pressure. And you're going to really seriously run the risk of popping a disc, whether it's going to be a bulge, a herniation, or a slip. So in my mind, those are probably the most common things associated with those lower back issues.
Yeah, for sure. With working out, it's like lower back and back in general. It's like one of those, I don't want to say death sentences. That's not right. The right way to put it. Like let's like when you're working out and you're like on a fitness protocol, it almost is, right? It puts everything to a halt because like you can bang your knee up, you can bang your elbow, your ankle, and you can go and do different lifts in there. But like when your back's fucked, you're like, dude, I can't do anything. I can't do anything. You know, you're like I've been there before, you know, like where you got something out of line, you know, like a slip disc or something to that nature. And these things do often work themselves out. It's not always necessary, you know, chiropractic. But we'll talk more about that too when you should seek, you know, other advice. But I've been there where like, dude, I've been laid up for a day going like heavy, improper form on like heavy deadlifts, you know, and like going and doing the set. And then on that last rep, like, okay, I'm done. And not, you know, I'm doing proper form the whole time, up and down, you know, proper form, bracing the core, you know, keeping a neutral spine. And then it's like the last one where, you know, you're done. Instead of just dropping it like I should have, I decided to set it down with an arch back and immediately, dude, like, no, feel it. I think it was more my was that sacred joint. I can't remember the sacred. I can't remember, not my psoas, but anyways, sacrum. It was sacrum. Thank you. It's like something to do with my sacrum, which wasn't necessarily my lower back, but it was radiating throughout my glutes and my lower back. But yeah, it's just one of those death sentences where it puts everything to a stop. So it's so important, right, that we like do, as you had mentioned, John, it's like proper form. But more than anything, I think like the big point I want to put on is like bracing, right, and having that neutral spine. It's just so tough to see, like no matter what people are doing, whether they're benching, whether they're doing a row, an upright row, a bent over row, deadlift, you know, like back squat, dude, when you see someone and they're having the curvature of that spine, it's just like, it's just scary to watch, you know.
Well, they hyperextend it. I see a lot of guys on bench press, especially heavy, they'll hyperextend that back. But when you think about the anatomy of your spine, if you remember the old biology class, they had the skeleton hanging up in the closet, hanging up in the corner. You got the thoracic area that comes down straight, and then you got the lower lumbar area that curves inward to the inside of the body. And if you think of the vertebrae, those vertebrae are all spaced out equally. Now, if you flatten out that lower lumbar, you open up the backside of those vertebrae. The inside pinches, the backside opens up. Now, if you overexert yourself, you hold your breath, you build up that internal pressure, whatever, and that back vertebrae area is opened up because it's not neutral, you're popping that disc. It's going to go. I guarantee you it's going to go, and it's going to be a lifelong set of pain.
100%. Yeah. And I think another thing you touched on, I think it's so important to touch on with lower back is core strengthening, right? Like everyone thinks like, oh, core means six pack, right? My six pack abs, like, no, like your core, you have so many different abdominal walls, right? And you have all these different things in your lower back, including in your spinal recta and everything else that's included in your core, you know? So when we talk about core strengthening, we're not talking about doing crunches, 1,000 crunches, right? You know, we talk about like all the different types of core exercises you can do, whether it be like with, you know, farmer's walks, right? You know, carrying a kettlebell in one hand and having to brace yourself, like, you know, a heavy kettlebell and just doing a farmer's walk. Right. That's core exercise. That's a core exercise, right? So there's a lot of different stuff that people aren't utilizing out there to help prevent lower back pain. The other point that you and I both love about is our central nervous system and how it acts, right? Sometimes our lower back is like, it's that flare up area that our body will go to let us know something's wrong. Sometimes we don't have any issues with our lower back. We might have some tight glutes or hamstrings. We might have
that's one of the big leading clauses to it too. Tight hamstrings, which pull on the glutes, which pulls on that lower lumbar area of the lower back.
Exactly, right. So it's like it's not always everyone, like it's one of the quick areas our body will go to target, because it does put that all stop. When your body, your central nervous system, that's here to preserve your life. That's what it does all day, every day. It's like, hey, let's keep this person alive. And it's like, how do I put a stop to this? My hamstring it's jacked up. But if I put my hamstring, if I let him know, if I let Alex know right now my hamstring's messed up, Alex will probably keep working out. But if I let him know his lower back's messed up, hey, it might stop. He might have to assess things, right? So it's important too. Like I think, like you said, like disc, bulging disc. This is like 70% of people are going to experience this throughout their life, especially. And I'd say
they may not even know it. They may not even know. They may not ever even be affected negatively by it. But those that do get negatively affected by it, they're going to have a lifelong issue of pain management.
Right. So I think it's like important with lower back or any back pain for that matter is to like obviously slow it down, assess things, and obviously seek professional assistance, like we're talking doctors, chiropractic, physical therapy, things like that, if it's to the point, if it's that excruciating. But
decompression helps. Try to separate. Yeah. One of the things I'll tell clients that just kind of is a rule of thumb that they can do, just as a way to practice if they're doing it right or not, is take your thumb and put it on the back, put it right on the center of your spine where the bone is, and then shift it a little over to the right or the left where the soft tissue is. Then engage your abdominal muscles as if you were going to get hit in the stomach. You'll feel those transverse abdominal muscles around that spine squeeze and engage. And that's a protection that is used to help control those discs from popping out. It helps to solidify that spinal column and protect it so that you can try to avoid that as much as possible. But if you're not doing that, or if you're flattening out that lower back and you're changing the spacing on those vertebrae, you're just opening up that door for an injury. It's ultimately it's going to happen sooner or later, but you've got to engage that proper form and get it into a habit, into a routine of every time you lift. Just like every time you lift, you breathe. Every time you lift, you should engage that core area. And like you said, it's important to do the entire core, not just that front rectus abdominis for the six pack.
Yes, exactly. Right. So building that core up and making sure it's strong, it's going to really protect that lower back. And also glutes and hammies and everything else that has to do. I mean, it's the body's kinetic pain, stretching, making sure you stretch out. You could have a tight lower back, but again, it could be your glutes or your hamstrings that are tightened up, and it's just pulling on your lower back.
A lot of people suffer from sciatica because of that. For that specific issue, having tight hamstrings and glutes, a lot of people suffer from sciatica issues.
Yeah, exactly. So it's what type of pain, right? So when we say pain, that's very broad, but we're talking about like and John and I coming from that lifting background, and we're talking about that extreme, like
agonizing. You're going to urinate yourself pain.
Right. We're not necessarily talking about tightness and stuff, which that's considered pain, right? And there's different ways to get around that. Like we're talking about loosening up, mobility, staying on a mobility routine, especially if you do know that your lower back tends to tighten up. Let's focus on stretching the hamstrings, getting the quad, your entire legs, not quads so much, but let's say your glutes, making sure that those are loosened up before, we immediately say, hey, this is a lower back injury or a lower back pain necessarily. It could be something that's underlying causing that too. But John and I are more referring when pain, we're talking about like that sharp shooting pain where like it's putting a stop in your tracks and you're just like, what's going on, right? So that's a very common one that we get. The other one is shoulder injuries, and again, I'll let you take it off, but like kind of to reiterate up these things as we do. I heard a statistic that again, 70% of people out there, especially athletes, maybe even more so in athletes, are walking around currently today with some kind of partial torn labrum or fully torn labrum. And again, they don't know it. Your central nervous system is that amazing thing where it targets it'll let you know certain areas in the body are affected or hurt or injured based off of triage. Is this more important? If you have a knee injury and a shoulder injury, you might only feel it in the knee. You could be walking around with a torn labrum right now and not even know it because it's triage is, hey man, your knee's jacked up.
Right.
So Interesting, but yeah, so 70% of people I've heard, especially athletes, are walking around with either partial or fully torn labrums and shoulder injuries, right? So I'll let you kick it off.
Think about the old school days. Think about the big time bodybuilders. You know, the old school days, you do a lat pull down super heavy behind the head.
Behind the back. Yeah,
oh, yeah. And I mean, the only thing you're going to stand to gain by doing that is a torn rotator cuff. I mean, you're absolutely going to get a torn rotator cuff. You got no gain to any muscle by going behind the head other than to gain a torn rotator cuff. And back in the day, they didn't have arthroscopic surgery. So they had to open up your shoulder, go in, and it was pretty intrusive surgery, and there was a lot of tissue trauma that was done that would put you down for quite a long time. Now they got arthroscopic now, but that's even limited too, depending on how bad the tear is. Is it a partial tear? Are there two sections of it? There's 4 pieces in there that you got to be concerned with that holds that joint in place. So how many of you torn up? How many do they have to fix? So a lot of it's going to depend on how much tissue trauma there's going to be and how long you're going to be out once you get an injury like that. Right.
And I agree with you. It's like the shoulder's so unique too, because you might have limited overhead use. You might there's different pain points too. Like there's people like, hey, I can raise it to laterally and it's perfectly fine. As soon as I try to go overhead, I get a sharp pain. I can raise it frontal and I get this sharp pain, but laterally it's there's nothing, right? So again, there's different, like John said, there's four different parts in there that could be infected. Several.
Well, for those that are listening, if you think about it like a ball inside of a joint, and you got 4 tight rubber bands that are in a squared layout on top of that joint. That's what holds that ball joint in place. If you overextend that or you impinge that, you're going to tear 1 or 2 or more of those little rubber bands that are in there, or those tendons that are in there, or the ligaments that are up in there, and that's what's going to create that injury for you. And then depending on which one is torn is going to depend on which angle of position you're going to move to get that pain.
Right. Yeah. And I think like common causes like for this, like especially in athletes, right? It's just overuse.
Yeah.
And us in the world, right? And I'd have to research this more. I love researching and I'm fascinated by things, but most of us are predominantly right or left-handed, right? Mostly right-handed out in the world. There's some weirdos like me, the lefties out there, right? And then you got the really weirdos that can use both
hands. Yeah.
So, but anyways, like I know just from growing up playing contact sports, hockey, I'm a little banged up and stuff, but I know just because I am predominantly left-handed, I very rarely will go to my right naturally. I've used that shoulder over the years and years now of just wear and tear of just like, whether it's throwing or just overuse, right? So that's just a common, like as we age, right? And we get older, it's just the way it goes. It's overuse, right?
A lot of baseball pitchers will get a lot of tears in their shoulders. Football players, anybody throwing a ball, anything going over a head, you're going to get a lot of injuries up in that shoulder as a result.
So I think overuse would probably be the number one just of shoulder injuries. I don't see too many people as opposed to the back where like you can tell like when someone's like going heavy or doing something with in proper form. Then you'll see like, okay, dude, this person jacked their back up, right? So shoulder injuries a lot of times can come out of nowhere. I'm a victim of this if I sleep wrong, if I sleep with my arm under the pillow.
A lot of people sleep on their shoulder. They put that pressure on there too.
Yeah. So if I sleep wrong, the next day I wake up and my shoulder's sore, or it's doing that thing where it'll click a little bit or it'll pop back in once in a while, right? So, and a lot of us just deal with that, and we go through.
I'll tell you another big one. If anybody that's married has a girlfriend, if your girlfriend or your wife is like my wife, she has a purse that carries pretty much everything in there. I mean, that's like almost an emergency call box right there. If you keep that in the back seat of the car, and she's driving and she reaches back to get that purse that's about 30 pounds and used as a self-defense weapon as well, and she goes to grab it, she's overextending that shoulder, she's going to cause an impingement, and that weight is going to tear that rotator cuff. That's another common way of getting that injury for ladies when they're in their cars and they got their purses back there. Anything that you extend backwards to taking that elbow behind the shoulder is going to put that in impingement.
That's a good point, like that overextension, right? And that's something we kind of like. We can cheat with it in the bodybuilding, the hypertrophy community. We can cheat a little bit with that, but after like you have experience and you have the proper strength and the surrounding muscles built up, right, where you can do those overextensions to really like get that eccentric elongating, of the muscle. But yeah, dude, like our everyday use, right? When we overextend, I see people all the time and they're doing like chest flies and stuff, or even bench press. Right?
Heavy bench press will do it. Yeah.
And they got the super wide grip on the bench and their shoulder and their elbows flared out. And it's so much on the shoulders, right? Because of that overextension. And I think that just leads into proper form, right? And you're going to hear this for all these. Right?
That's all proper form. Yeah, your
Yeah.
elbow is not made to rear rotate with an additional amount of weight on it. It's going to impinge that rotator cuff. You're going to put too much force on it. It's going to tear one of those pieces in there. It's going to happen.
Yeah. So making sure that people, you know, when we're doing bench, when we're doing any kind of shoulder stuff, right, we're not overdoing it. We're keeping that elbow at a nice like 45, right? It's going to focus more on the chest too when you're doing it at the 45, right? And that's the common. That's honestly the biggest misuse of form I can see, because unless someone's specifically trying to do a wide grip bench again, which takes time, expertise, and lighter loads, to specifically work that, you know, shoulder area, as well as like, you know, the exterior part of the pec there, you get a little bit on that line. But yeah, just improper form I see is all the time is on the bench, like just flat bench, you know, incline bench, even like dumbbells, right? You see people flaring them out, you know. The other thing I see, dude, speaking of dumbbells, that's where you see it. Like somebody's doing a heavy set and they're on the bench and they're dumbbells, and like instead of kicking it back and sitting up, they'll just release the dumbbells over to the
Coming
side.
off to the side, right to the left, and dump them.
Right to the left. I see that all the time. I've seen that from so many buddies and so many different people that have really messed their shoulders up doing that. So if you have clients doing that, obviously we want to correct that. We want to show them the proper way to re-rack the weights, whether it's heavy or not. Doesn't matter. I don't care if it's 15 pounds or it's 150 pounds. Let's re-rack it properly. Let's finish that last rep properly. That's usually where a lot of injuries come into play, is on the last couple reps.
When you figure you go into the gym, let's say whatever exercise you're doing, you use the most absolute perfect form that you can. You execute that exercise as perfectly as you possibly can. The human body is so unique and so diverse that you can do exactly what you're supposed to do, and you can still get a tear, a strain, a sprain, or something. That's just the way the human body is. So you want to minimize that as much as you possibly can by executing everything with the proper form, making sure not to overextend. And then you brought it up earlier, overuse, overstrenuous use, beating up on that joint, beating up on that tendon, beating up on that area. And that overuse is going to lead to an injury that can then become a reoccurring injury.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think another point to that too would be, a lot of injuries can happen because of underuse too, right? So like, again, predominantly left-handed, my left is a lot stronger than my right. So if I'm just hyper-focused, and again, it depends on what the person's training for, but like if I'm hyper-focused, if I only use a barbell, if I do never use dumbbells, if I don't ever do unilateral exercises to strengthen both sides, I don't care who you are, if my left is stronger than my right, and even if it's 5%, 10%, when I'm doing a bench press,
that imbalance in strength,
my left is pushing up more. It is taking more of the load, is taking more of the weight. So when you do break it down and like you go, okay, I'm going to do a unilateral and I'm going to do dumbbells and I'm going to do 10 on this side and 10 on this side. Now you're strengthening both sides equally, right? And I've become a much larger component of that. Back in the day when I was a kid, it was like, how much can you bench? How much can you deadlift? How much can you back squat, right? You know, just more like meathead, like put as much weight up as possible. But now it's like train smarter, you know, let's train smarter and let's do this for life, right? Let's not blow ourselves out at 30 years old or 25 or whatever. Let's do this well into our 60s, 70s, 80s. But in order to do that, it's proper form. It's mobility that we're talking about, you know, like a lot of people underutilize the mobility, the stretching routines, the even like mobility under weight, like a little bit of weight, right? John was talking about earlier, you know, like we did the old school, lat pull downs, right? Where you're pulling it down behind the neck, behind the back there. Not to say that's necessarily evil, but you're not going to do it with 200 pounds on there, right?
Yeah, you shouldn't be doing it with 200 pounds on there.
But back in the day, that's how guys were throwing them out. But
if you're doing it, even if you're doing it with a light weight, if you're still coming down as far as you possibly can, you're still impinging that rotator cuff on both sides. Even with a lighter weight, that deep pull can still cause an impingement enough to tear that rotator cuff.
So it's wise to make sure you have the mobility, right? And working on that mobility and gradually working on that mobility, little by little over time before attempting any such, you know, of these kind of movements, right?
Well, you brought up a real good point too, especially with shoulder injuries, having an imbalance in strength, you know, whether it be from one side to the other, a dominant side versus non-dominant side. But also, this has just been in my experience, and I can't offer any scientific data to back it up at this point, but one of the things I've noticed with clients is clients who have very weak teres major or teres minor muscles up under in that armpit area that's not supporting that shoulder. If it's not supporting that shoulder area, then what happens is all of that stress, instead of our bodies taking it by way of the muscles, it transfers into the structure of the body. And that structure is not meant to take a lot of that force. That's what our muscles are for. So if our muscles have an imbalance in that strength, we have our posterior deltoids and our middle deltoids are strong, but our rear delts, our teres major, teres minor are weaker, then that imbalance is going to create a problem inside that joint. And then again, you're going to run with impingement and you're going to find yourself into an injury prone type of situation. So you brought up a real good point there earlier with that imbalance in strength.
Yeah. Roger that. I appreciate it. No, that's good, man. Like, shoulders are no fun, but like, again, nothing like the low back. I tell you what, that's just because I'm stubborn too, and I probably worked, through injuries when I shouldn't have. And that comes with time and patience. We can only suggest, as being around this community for a while now, right? It's like, hey, man, especially if you're younger listening to this, or if you're a younger coach coaching younger people, they're going to want to keep pushing, but at the same time, patience. Let's do this for longevity. But yeah, shoulders ain't nothing like that low back when that hits. I have never torn my shoulder completely though, so I apologize for anybody who has. And they're like, you don't know what you're talking about because that shit hurts.
Yeah, I'm sure all of it does. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, let's go to knee pain. And speaking of knee pain, you're perfect for this, right? Because that's another top three, right? We're just gonna go over these three, even though there's so many injuries we could go over. But like knee pain, you just had orthoscopic. Was your second or your first?
No, this was my second. I had to have a partial meniscectomy.
Yeah.
So I had one on my right and I just had one on my left, and I'm still having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. Well, let's break down for the listeners then. So you like the different parts in your meniscus, ACL, MCL. I think it's rather confusing to people. What is a meniscectomy? And then what was that entail?
Meniscectomy is just a partial removal of the meniscus in the knee. And that's going to be a little bit of that tissue or that cartilage tissue that's in that knee that is used as the padding between the upper and lower bones, the tibia and the femoral bone. That it separates those and it gives you that cushion in between.
Right below the kneecap, right?
Right below the knee, right below the patella, right there where the patella is in the front, and then in between the tibia and the femoral bone.
Right. Yeah. So that's always fun, right?
And there's several areas in there that you can get a tear in it, where it can be on the inner, outer, backside, front. So partial meniscectomy is where they go in and they take the part that's damaged. If it's torn too much and they can't repair it, they'll just remove the torn portion, taking some of it away. I think they took 15% out of me. If it's a tear that they can fix, then they will fix it. So that's a little bit more difficult. And your prognosis, from what I understand, is not as good on those tears, on the repair on those tears. They tend to happen again. And then, of course, having a meniscectomy where they take part of it out, then it's going to leave you more prone to joint arthritis as you get older. Right. So those are unfortunately some of the side effects of this.
Yeah. No, it's the knee pain and the knee tears and knee surgeries, like, especially in the athletic world, is something.
The ACL too is another bad one.
Yeah. It's just one of those ones you're like, ooh, especially back in the day, man. Like it was one of those ones, like you said, rather invasive surgery. You have one of those Frankenstein scars, across the top of your knee where they flay it open. But nowadays, like, much quicker recovery time. Great doctors out there. The orthoscopics they got going and stuff is amazing. However, that is very, very common in sports in general, right? We put a lot of impact, whether it's running, again, growing up playing hockey and stuff, football, whatever else, these impact sports, you see it happen all the time. People blow out their knees and it just sucks.
You figure there's a lot of areas you can hit on that knee. You got your ACL, you've got your meniscus, you've got knee bursitis, you've got patella tendonitis. Yeah, you've got several different issues that you can have, and you can have that same thing in each knee. So you could, rewrite. You could get that same injury bilaterally.
Yeah, you get to double down. You get double up.
Exactly. There's a lot that goes on in that joint. So
yeah. I think one of the main ones I see out there in the fitness world, whether it's with weight or even body weight, right? And we're going to talk big about mobility here. Because we're talking about ankle flexion all the way to, your hip flexion, dorsiflexion, all this stuff, right? that cause knee pain. like because your knee, again, it takes a lot of the brunt of, like, if you have poor mobility in those other areas, your knee's going to take the brunt of it, and unfortunately it can only take so much.
And you talked about the imbalance or the imbalance of strength. If you've got an imbalance, and just to keep it, really layman's term, between your quad and your teardrop, if you've got one overstrength, or over competing with the other one, you're going to be pulling your patella off to one side every time. So it's not running in that natural track it's supposed to run into. So now you're causing some pain and some friction in there that's going to lead to, could be leading to the patella tendonitis or pre-patella issues or things like that. So, that could also be a problem with having an imbalance in that strength just in the one leg.
Yeah, I agree with you. And there's so many different points on this, because like having an imbalance, bigger quads than hamstrings, having bigger hamstrings than quads. Right. The other thing, like you said, the imbalance, the teardrop, and then what the heck's that called? The outside. What's the actual term? You got the, I can't remember the quad, but what's the scientific term? I can't remember.
Oh God, you're gonna ask the scientific name. You're gonna wait a while on me.
I just wanted to kind of reiterate, because I was watching this.
You didn't say we're going to do a class on kinesiology here, so come on.
Right? Yeah. No, there's this guy I usually watch on YouTube and stuff, Ryan Houston, right? And he's great. Does this scientific stuff behind, like, our muscles and activation and hypertrophy training specifically, but I've always done this, okay, and you've probably done this too, but when you rotate, let's say you're doing leg extensions, right, and you rotate your heels in, right, and you extend, I always felt more activation in that teardrop area,
right?
Okay, if I did, just straightforward, kind of mutual, if I rotated my toes inward, I always felt more activation on the exterior, on the quad there. Scientifically,
knee extensions too. You can do the same thing on the knee extensions. Rotate your toe outward. It's the teardrop. Rotate it inward. It's the sweep. It's that outer quad sweep. It's the quadriceps femoris muscle.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. So, I always thought that was interesting, because that's something John and I think can personally attest to, because we've done it. We've lifted weights. We've done it. Now, scientifically, they say you get the same amount of activation either way. I don't believe that. Honestly,
I don't believe that.
I've watched my muscles, as you're doing that. I've seen the activation in it, So I think
if scientifically, if they say you get the same, then how do you end up with your sweep over dominant to your teardrop, or your teardrop over dominant to your sweep? Unless you had an injury, how do you get that imbalance if it's exactly the same?
Exactly. I always thought that too. I
don't believe that.
I think one part of that quad takes over the other. Because there's like layers to the quad too. You have a layer.
That's a large muscle, very large muscle.
Yeah. So, but a lot of knee pain can stem from your quads, and it can stem, again, like John's saying, pulling on the kneecap itself, and that's where you'll feel that pain in your patella. Most people start with that initial pain. It feels like inside of your kneecap. And it'll be basically some kind of imbalance there. Or if you're over exerting your quads, your hamstrings are weak and your quads are taking the predominant amount. They're pulling away from your kneecap there, and it's pulling, and it's creating that little tension, that little pain there. And that's from a muscle imbalance, right? So I think the important part of that.
The young folks listening to this, they got to understand. The old days, in my mind anyway, the old days of trying to lift as super heavy as you can, trying to compete with how much weight you can do, trying to jump as high as you can, or trying to run as far as you can. The more compression and impact you have on that joint, the more tendency you're going to have problems later on in life. As you know, I'm a senior fitness specialist. So one of the things I deal with a lot is folks that are in that 55 years of age and older category. And I deal with a large amount of people that have had to have knee replacements as a result of the abuse they put their bodies through when they were younger, whether it's because they ran and their body, believe it or not, as much as everybody loves running, the body wasn't really built for all of that trauma force to come down on that joint every time you take a step. Heavy weights, doing squats with deep knee bends, overstretching them, overextending them, things like that. All of those things that we do when we're in our younger years, we might be able to live with that for a little while, but that abuse takes an effect on our body over time. And if you're at 55 years of age or older and you're starting to get knee replacements, you're going to have some issues to deal with.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's like these old injuries that just live within, and then they decide to
They catch up.
they catch up. They all
They
do.
do.
And all of us older athletes have said that too, like with the younger ones. And I never believed it when I was younger, and the older athletes were telling me that. I wanted to go heavy on this and heavy on that, even if I, didn't have always the correct form. I'd muscle it up there, right? And
Yep.
that shit catches up with you. It really does. The biggest one I see out there in the world, and there's all different kinds of, like improper, but like improper squatting, like I said, like whether it's with weight or without weight,
That's huge.
I see people hunched over. They're not getting
It's huge. Yeah.
they're not at the knee crease. But also the big one is like tracking the knees over the toes.
Over the
You see so
toes.
many
Yes.
people that bow in. They bow in with their knees, and I'm like,
Yep.
that's killing me to watch, dude, because it just looks painful.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, guys, quick pro tip here, like no joke, and I think John can attest to this, is back in the day, I didn't use wraps. I didn't use knee sleeves,
Right.
and shit. And I don't know why I didn't. It was just a macho thing. And I wish I wasn't like that, and I don't care who you are, man, but like it's especially if you're going under a lot of load, like wrap up. Put a knee sleeve on, man. I don't care if you look like or if your friends aren't doing it, especially for younger athletes. Like save yourself the heartache down the line, it's going to help out tremendously. And there's a reason that they're out there, So, but yeah.
If you think of the anatomy of that knee, of the anatomy of that knee when you're doing a squat, if you're coming down and that knee joint is at a 90 with all of that additional weight, that's straining enough on it as it is. Right. But if you let that knee go forward of that toe and you put that kind of angle on it with that kind of weight coming down, you're putting a tremendous amount of over excessive force on everything that holds that together, on the tendons, on the ligaments, on the ACL, on the patella. Everything has got a huge amount of it, unnecessary excessive force, which that knee was not built for. Something's going to give, and then you're going to be screwed.
Yeah, I agree. And another big part of that we always talk about would be, like you had mentioned with the lower back and as well as shoulders. Or anytime you're lifting weights, it's properly setting up and properly bracing, right? So like we're going to properly set up and we're going to activate. That's something that, as you learn later in life too, is like before I go into that squat, whether it's heavy or light, I am bracing my core, I'm protecting my spine, and I'm also firing up my glutes. I'm firing up my quads. I'm like, my legs are ready. Like I've got everything like activated.
Everything.
Right. I'm not just dropping into that squat, hoping they wake up on the way down. Like, no, you're awake, you're ready to go. This is what we're doing. And I'm going to make sure I track, and I'm not dropping down excessively at a fast pace. I'm not coming up explosive either. I'm going a nice tempo. Hey, I'm going down, I'm going up, even down. Right. Yeah. Unless obviously we can get into different styles of training where you have drop, you three count to a 0, 3 0 1, 3 0.
That tempo is going to be important too. I know you've been at the gym and you've seen somebody load that bar up, set it on their shoulders, and they drop before they struggle to get it up. Yeah. I mean, to get that weight up, which is that's one of the worst things that I think you can do is have that heavy drop, relax the muscles enough to drop you down that low, and then engage everything to get that drive right back up. That's just you're begging for an injury.
Yeah, you get that bounce, right? And we're talking like professional Olympic lifters that people see it on TV and they're like, oh, well, they're getting that bounce out of the bottom. And it's like, dude, they're doing that one time for the PR lift that they're about
to do. And they built up to it.
And they built up to it. You know how they built up to it? They built up with tempo squats.
And they've conditioned everything. They've conditioned not only their muscles, but their ligaments and their tendons have been conditioned for that type of use. Exactly. That overextension of those ligaments and tendons is not going to hold out too long if you haven't conditioned it for it.
No, yeah, that's just not. So I see that constantly, right? Is an improper tempo, knees not tracking over the toes. You get that bow in the middle. You get people overextending. Like, and again, it comes down to just putting the proper weight on. Put the proper weight on. And as a coach, it's your job to make sure they're putting the proper weight. It's in person or online, right? You need to make sure that we're doing that RPE scale and making sure that we're staying on it and keeping your client accountable and keeping yourself accountable if you're the client, don't overdo it, right? Build up to that, this isn't macho lifting. This is about longevity and strength. And that takes time. We all want that quick fix. So take your time. And honestly, if you take your time with all this stuff, you ease yourself into it, obviously push yourself, but like you're going to avoid these ailments and these pains if you just lift with your mind, not necessarily do with your body all the time. Right. So cool, man. Well, let's go talk about recovery, right? So we talked about some of those, and we'll keep going here. Recovery strategies, time frames, stuff like that. I kind of pulled up a little doc here. I'll read off just so we have definitions that we can go off of. So like, let's talk about common injuries like sprains and strains, right? So you have a sprain, which is an injury to ligaments, tissues connecting to the bones at a joint, right? A strain is actually an injury to muscles or tendons, tissues connecting to the bones. So I hear that a lot of times, like people are like, oh, I sprained this or I strained this. Not that I'm not going to, potato, it doesn't matter too much, people's lingo, but there is a difference between a sprain and a strain. It's specifically to which part of the body you injured, right? So common causes, of a sprain, sudden twisting or impact, often seen in sports, right? So a lot of people get ankle sprains. Right? Strain would be overstretching or repetitive motion, commonly during heavy lifting or prolonged activities. So in sports, you might see more sprains. In powerlifting and lifting in general, and you might see more strains, right? Then we talk about symptoms. Like we know symptoms, we know what hurts, right? But we can dive into it. Pain around the affected joint would be more of a sprain, swelling, bruising, limited mobility. Sometimes you'll get a little pop, right? Something like that. Strain is more muscle soreness or spasms, swelling, and difficulty moving the affected muscle, and then possible bruising in severe cases. So let's talk about that, like, and how we can kind of avoid that. Again, it probably comes down to mobility. Kind of everything we touched on is, especially with lifting weights, we'll probably talk a little bit more about strain. Obviously, we're all athletes. We're not talking too much about like different sports at this point, where you do see a lot of sprains, right? But straining your muscles is very common. Straining your muscles or tendons is very common in what we do. So how do we kind of deal with that? Let's talk a little bit about recovery, whether it's mild, moderate, severe. That depends on the recovery as well. But yeah, what do we kind of do with that? Heat, ice, what are your thoughts on that, John?
Yeah, I mean, if you've got one, if it's an acute injury, anything that's an acute injury, you always want to start off with ice, always ice, so you can reduce the swelling and the inflammation. One of the most common methods to use, it's pretty well known out there, but you want to go with what they call the RICE method: rest, ice, compression, elevation. Those are going to be the main things that you can do to help reduce the swelling and inflammation, which over time is going to allow that area to heal. If it's extreme cases, then yeah, you might need, go to your doctor to see if your doctor wants to look at you for any kind of muscle relaxers, any kind of NSAIDs, anything like that. But the most common cure is going to be the RICE method, the RICE method, the rest, the ice, compression, and elevation of it.
100%. Yeah, spot on. Like you have the RICE method, number one, first and foremost, and progressive rehabilitation, right? Which is basically you're going to gradually, not meaning like, okay, I rested 1 week or 2 weeks or however long, the muscle's feeling better, let me go put the same exact amount of weight on it, right? And again, it depends on like the grades too, like grade 1, 2, 3 severity. But you're going to progressively rehabilitate that muscle, right? So like, go do your bench, go do your thing. But like, let's say you have like a strain in your quad or whatever, like go sit on the leg extension and focus on that one leg, and put a lighter weight, test the waters. It's been 2 weeks.
Very slow, methodical movement.
Right. We're not. Yeah. And we're going, okay, this feels good. And leave it at that.
Right.
You don't have to like, okay, it felt good, let me go back. Like, no, let's leave it at that. And then like, again, we're talking about time. We're talking about working out, using our mind, not necessarily going off of our body. Let's work out smart here. Like the different levels would be mild, moderate, or severe, right? And mild strain would be like you overstretched it. Like, you elongated that muscle a little bit too much. You got minor tears. It's like
didn't warm it up, overstretched it, too much use.
Yeah. Moderate would be considered a partial tear or a tendon tear, right? So recovery on that is about 4 to 8 weeks, right? Mild being about 1 to 2 weeks recovery. Severe is a complete tear. That's sometimes you need surgery, sometimes everything else. You're looking at 2 to 4 months, right? So again, warming up properly, proper form, mobility, all these things that we kind of neglect, especially in the bodybuilding world. Just get it done. It's going to save you 2 to 4 months, like, get it done. I know that 5-10 minute warm up isn't always fun and you're pressed on time, but dude, get warmed up, get those muscles loose, get your central nervous system fired up, let it know what's about to happen, so it does not caught off guard, and
I think it's important to mention too. One of the things I've always worked with on my clients is on that warm up.
Yeah.
A lot of times I think people forget some of the areas that are just as important to warm up. So, for example, if you go in and you're going to do a heavy chest press, you go in and you stretch your chest muscles, you stretch your triceps, you go through all that as far as stretching and warming up all your muscles, isometric flexing, stretching them, that sort of thing. And then you load that bar up and you do a heavy set. You have not done anything to get your ligaments and your tendons ready for that lift. And they're going to need to get warmed up, and they're going to need to get the blood flow just as much as those muscles are. Typically, what I do with clients is I'll have them do whatever the intended exercise is that they're going to do with a very light amount of weight and a high volume, slow movement, and a lot of isometric flexing to not only warm up the muscles, but to warm up the ligaments, the tendons, and those joints, and any synovial fluid that you need, any bursts of fat sacs that you have in those joints, so that you can get everything ready, warmed up, moving, ready to have whatever resistance you're planning on putting on that, so that you don't run the risk of your muscles are fine, but your ligaments and tendons aren't. So that's a huge aspect, in my opinion, of trying to make sure that if you're going to warm up, you want to do it properly, and you want to make sure you focus on the right things.
Right. You're going to be doing, arm circles when you're about to do lower body.
Exactly. Squats. Yeah, exactly.
So,
Calf raises, and you're doing arm circles like you're trying to fly.
Right. You're over there doing, I'm getting my shoulders warmed up and go do some squats. So let's make it happen. No, I get you. Warm up properly, form, and mobility. Like those of you that aren't doing mobility workouts at home, or your clients aren't, get them on some kind of routine, even if it's just 2-3 times a week. Get them started somewhere, but get them stretching. Let them stretching out. Get those muscles ready, because that in itself is its own workout. To be honest, people like that have never done stretching or mobility exercise before, they're gonna be sweating. They're gonna be sweating.
Yeah.
So cool. So like to come back, like workout modalities, right? So injury safe workouts on your way back, right? Low impact alternatives coming back. I think the biggest one you see, and obviously this one, working with the older folks and senior community, swimming. Working out in the pool, swimming, right?
One of the best things that you can do. No impact.
No impact. Low impact, no impact. Minimizes joint stress while maintaining cardiovascular fitness. As well as, like, I don't know if you guys have ever done resistance training, like those. It was kind of big back in the day. I don't know if it's still as big, but people take little dumbbells and do like stuff under the water. Shit, man.
They actually have, for water aerobics, they actually have these floaty type of dumbbells that helps to increase the resistance of the movement through the water. So you get increased resistance, but again, you still don't get any of that impact or shock to the joints or to the body itself. So it's an excellent way to, if you want to work out because you've got an injury, but you want to still keep going. That is one way to do it. Or if you're in the older age category, or you have some special category that you're in, whether it's scoliosis or something else that's going on physically that challenges you, that's another way that you can also warm yourself up or get yourself into shape, is doing anything in the water.
Anything in the water, I think it's just way underrated. And obviously we don't always have access to that, but it's so great if you do. Like, definitely utilize that. A plug for me, like when this little quick story, like when I was doing the underwater welding thing, that career before, we would work under the water, for like 6 to 8 hours at a time, depending on the depth. And I remember on those days, man, I would burn like 6,000 to 8,000 calories.
Oh, yeah.
It was insane, because you're just working the entire time with the resistance under the water, and like it's a little stressful. So you
got that pressure on you too. All that pressure is making it harder to breathe.
We would burn like that. I mean, you just eat like a horse, like nonstop. Like you really would. At that point, if I could really eat whatever I wanted and just not really gain a whole lot of weight. I mean, that would be a random day, that many calories, right? It wasn't always that, obviously. I don't think we'd live or survive. But you would have one of those days where you'd be in the water for 8 hours and it was tough work, and you get up there in calories for sure. Come back to shore about a pound lighter, 2 pounds lighter. So swimming, cycling's another good one, right? So cycling is ideal for people with lower body injuries. Stationary bikes, they allow for controlled movement and adjustable resistance. So I think that, coming back from like knee injuries, ankle injuries, other stuff, it does help hip injuries as well. Cycling's a good one. This is an underrated one that I kind of got into recently would be resistance bands. So I didn't never used resistance bands in my life. That wasn't just something I did.
They'll put a hurt on you.
Especially, when you really like you're coming back from a pretty good
injury. Yeah.
It takes time to build that back up. Like we said, don't just, oh, it's feeling better. It's been 4 months, doctor clearance. Like, I'm going to go back. Like, no, man, like you need to rehab this thing, whether you're in physical therapy with, doctors doing it that way, or if you're doing it on your own. Resistance bands are great for that.
Well, it's effective because almost any physical therapy place that you go to on injury recovery and physical therapy recovery, they are going to instruct you to use those exercise bands as a method of recovering from whatever the injury is. That's how effective they are.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. 100%. And then the biggest underrated thing in the world would be walking. Walk. Go for a walk. Yeah. It's not like a lot of us, strength and power lifters and bodybuilders and even CrossFitters, right? Don't like walking. CrossFitters, it's got to be fast and furious. Bodybuilders, it's like no cardio, please.
Exactly.
But just go walk.
If you want to go a little further with that, go find a sandy beach and walk on the sand. That's even harder. That'll put a work on you too. And again, it's 0 to low impact on the body.
Yeah,
good recovery.
Yeah. Another thing we got on here for recovery would be yoga, Pilates. Like, that's very underrated too. A lot of people, like, I didn't even know what Pilates was for the longest time, guys. That's full. I would sound like a fool, but I mean, I always thought Pilates was a type of yoga. I didn't realize that Pilates itself was its own core intensive exercise.
Yep.
You talk about preventive lower back pain. Go do some Pilates. Go do some Pilates once a week, twice a week, and I guarantee you your lower back pain is going to go away. Yoga, obviously, like one of the ancient practices of fitness. I think it originated from India, if I'm correct, and it's been around for thousands and thousands of years. So, like, obviously, they're doing something right. So, stuff for people to try out. Fitness is such a beautiful world, and there's so many different types. So I really think people should broaden their horizons. Whether you're a client or a coach, like, go try something new. Go drop into a yoga class. Go try a Pilates class. See what it's like. Just once. Right. Just once. Just see what it's like.
Amazing. You'd be surprised how many people out there, they'll go into the gym and they'll lift, they'll work out, get into a particular trend of some type of exercise discipline. And then you introduce them into something new that doesn't seem like it's too difficult. It's usually some of the smaller, easier exercises or different methods that these guys that can lift heavy weights, they can do all this. They look at that and they go, yeah, that doesn't seem like much. And the next thing you know, within about 15, 20 minutes, they are burnt out because their body wasn't adapted to that particular type of exercise or movement. So being diverse in what you're doing, exactly what you said, is nothing but a huge benefit overall, because it's going to handle, your body's going to respond to that very differently to what you've been used to if all you've ever done is go to the gym. So the more variety that you have in your exercise program, the more benefit it's going to bring to your body, the more you're going to solidify that body for long-term quality of life.
Right. I agree. And then another big one that has is this rowing, right? Rowing's a good one too. I love the rower. I've gained to love the rower. I used to hate the rower, but like it's low impact.
Another low impact. Yeah. Low impact.
Great keeping your cardiovascular system up. But I mean, if you do the rower properly too, like, man, you're getting a good workout on your leg. It's like 60% legs, 40% upper body, but
upper and lower. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're getting a good workout there, and I always on a good row, if I go for a good strong row and I have the right adjustments there on the caliper, which is on the right side, you can adjust the tension on the rower. You could get some strength out of it. You can get a good like pull. Biceps a little bit back. Your legs activated. There's different. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan. If you don't have bad knees and your body allows you to do so, I'm a huge fan of the stair climber. Yeah, because it will work the heck out of your lower path and your cardiovascular side of things. Just walking up these stairs. I mean, you're not having any impact because you're doing steady pressure for each step that you take, but it's that repetitive movement. And then depending on how quick you go and how long you go, you're going to get a really good workout. And that's going to put a huge improvement on a lot of the muscles through the lower half, including all the way up to the glutes, quads, calves, IT bands. Everything's going to get hit in that. And that's going to be a really good exercise so long as you're not having a knee issue.
Right. And I think like what we talked about too, like all these different types of injury safe workouts people can do. Let's be honest. When someone's starting out, and they're working out and they're getting back into it and they get an injury, they are already looking for any excuse to stop.
Right.
You know
It's
what I mean?
discouraging too. It's discouraging.
So like I'm getting back into it. Like I'm overweight. I'm trying to do this. I got a personal trainer, whatever it is, and I messed my elbow up. Right. People are looking for excuses to go back to the lifestyle because they are uncomfortable, and uncomfortableness creates change. But there's a reason. It's difficult. Right. So like when they mess their elbow up, okay, let's not underplay it. Okay, at all. Let's assess it. Let's make sure that they're good. Let's not blow it off by any means. But that doesn't mean that if you're a coach, then you'll have all these in your repertoire. Like, hey, your elbow's messed up. Okay, let's focus on the bike. I want to work on our cardiovascular.
There's alternatives. There's always an alternative.
Alternatives. I want to keep working on the cardiovascular system. I mean, if you ride a bike good distance, we all get that lactic buildup in our legs too. So you're working, So there's always alternatives, right? So don't let your client give up, and if you're a client, don't give up yourself just because you got an injury, right? It's going to happen. It's bound to happen. This is a sport. Fitness is a sport. Right.
I think one of the biggest things to think about for injuries is, I want to see if I get this right. Most people get an injury when they go to the gym and they've done far too little, far too long, and they go into the gym and they want to do far too much, far too fast with far too much weight. That's usually what's going to lead to your injury. That right there. If they don't start out slow, I mean, when we talk about the proper execution, proper warm up, all of that, that's great. But again, trying to overdo it, far too much, far too fast after doing far too little for far too long. Yeah. Those are going to be the things that'll get them into trouble.
It's the most common thing, right? Gun ho, ready to go, and then you see that burnout. Right. People haven't been in the gym for 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, 2 months, whatever. And they come back and they're all gun ho. And that week one, they're going and they got the new shoes and the new gear and everything else. And they're going every single day. And they're going
spend all that money on their new outfit.
Yeah. They're going for an hour and a half. And by the end, they're just burnt out. And they're just like 2 weeks in.
These days, they're starting off with their selfies before they do their workout. Don't forget those.
2 weeks in, they're burnt out. They're beat up. They're sore. And there's a difference between being sore and injured too. Let's clarify that. There's a difference between with having that lactic acid built up in the muscles and then having to flush it and then actual injury, right? But we'll go into that on a different episode. Yeah. Yeah, because that's a common misconception too. You'll be like, "Oh, I'm injured." Like, well, what hurts? Oh man, I'm just so sore. Like, don't get me wrong, that can be an injury. It can go to a level of injury, but most of the time, it's you're sore because you've got lactic acid built up, and you're reawakening these muscles that haven't worked like that in quite some time. So,
I don't think what people understand too is when you're lifting weights, you're damaging the muscle. You're creating microscopic tears to the muscle fiber. Yeah. And that's part of the recovery time of it. Like you had mentioned, getting that recovery time and the lactic acid buildup, you're going to get the soreness from the tear down of the muscle. But one of the things they tell everybody is if, when they say, well, when can I train my legs again? Or when can I train chest again? I tell them, I say the same thing. If you're sore, if that muscle is sore, even a little bit, don't train it, because that's your body letting you know it's still damaged. You still need recovery time. So if you've got a muscle that's sore, don't train it again, because then you're going to get into overtraining, overuse. And like we talked about earlier, that's an injury waiting to happen. And then it becomes chronic.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. That's a very good point, especially coming back. Like that time in between, right? That soreness time in between will get less and less. That's just from the microscopic tears we rebuild, right? And then as we rebuild more and more, I'm not gonna say it's harder to tear them, but it is. Like
it gets thicker, it gets denser, and it gets a little bit more fiber in there.
Yeah, right. So I mean, you get to that point where it's like your PRs when you're new become like every other month your first year. But like you get into this 5, 6, 10 years, and it's like, okay, man, if I jump up 3 pounds, that's awesome. Yes, all right. It's not those big jumps you see the newbie gains, but yeah, definitely like wait till you're not sore anymore, right? And then also we'll talk more on other episodes about how do you fast track that with the proper nutrition, and then flushing the system and hydration and protein and everything else, right? That takes.
Protein, hydration, absolutely so vitally important in that recovery time. That sleep, getting good sleep. Sleep is going to be an absolute important part of that, because that's the time your body's recovering and rebuilding, so long as you're providing it the proper nutrition, the proper hydration, the proper protein.
Yeah, cool. All right, so we're going to move to really towards the end. We'll start wrapping this up, and appreciate you guys listening to us. Hopefully you guys found this useful. We're going to talk about some coach specific topics, right? So like the role of form checks, like the importance. We'll also talk about educating your clients, and then like when to refer out, like knowing when to recommend physical therapy or medical professionals. And we'll really wrap it up for you guys. So thanks. Appreciate it. Hope you guys got something out of this. So coach specific topics, you got the role of form checks, right? So the importance is prevention. Poor form is a leading cause of injuries in fitness. The efficiency would be proper biomechanics ensure the target muscles are being worked effectively. Longevity, correct movement patterns reduce wear and tear on joints and connective tissues. So, I mean, that's kind of like self-explanatory, but like if you're over there and your client or yourself, you're doing poor form, you're going to get injured. It's just a matter of time. You may not have that day, but if you think it's the correct form, I'm probably so annoying at the gym, and it's just part of my nature of helping people, and I don't try to overstep. But if I see someone that's like doing something and it's just horrible form, I'll go over and be like, hey man,
make a recommendation. Yeah, I've done the same.
Can I make a quick recommendation? I just, I don't want to see you get injured. That's my leading line. Right. It's like, you're super strong. I can tell you work out hard, but like, I don't want to see you get injured and get sidelined. So like, maybe try it this way, 9 times out of 10, they actually are receptive, Yeah. Like, don't be afraid to do that, especially if you have knowledge on it. But a lot of people
you're going to find too, a lot of people, I don't mean to cut you off. I think you're going to find too, a lot of the people in the gym that you see, they're not really 100% sure on what they're doing. They read it in a magazine somewhere. They saw somebody put some TikTok video of how they do it, and they think that might be the correct way. But a lot of times they're not really 100% sure. So when you see them doing something wrong and you go over there and say, hey, listen, do you mind if I make a suggestion on a proper form on how to really get the most out of this? And you show them how to do it. When they do it the right way and they really do feel the muscles they're intending on training, then it clicks. Then they understand, that's the right way to do it. And they, like you said, they will go with it. And then you help somebody avoid an injury.
Right. And I think like a big part of that too would be like the biomechanics, right? When you see a lot of times people with proper form, it's because they're activating the wrong muscle that they're not even trying to stimulate. Right. So like if you see someone, and I'm just going to use deadlift because it's the easiest one to go to because you see a lot of lower back injuries from that. But like if you see a person pulling with their lower back, you know what I mean? Like that's the biomechanics just aren't there. That the wrong muscle is being stimulated. And that's a debate you can go through it like in any fitness realm. It's like, okay, do you do deadlifts on leg day or do you do it on back day? Like that's the debate, right? But I'm not going to throw out either one. I don't want to.
I was waiting to hear what you were going to say. I wanted to see what you were going to say.
Because honestly, I feel like deadlifts is like one of those full body, like, dude.
It is. It hits everything.
We can have a complete episode just on deadlifts and like all the benefits of deadlifts. But I know that like from the years of doing it, right? And I found that when I start with my deadlift and my arms are just like hooks, and I push away from the floor with my legs, and I engage my glutes, and I engage my quads and my hamstrings. Everything's fired up down there, and then I get past the knee, and that's where I start my hinge. Right, the proper biomechanics. I am ensuring that I am working the correct muscles at the correct time. If I am starting from the floor and trying to pull up with my back, that's how you fuck your back up. Yeah, So I think it's just important that the efficiency is there, first and foremost, and having that balance. If I work out legs all day, every day, and I don't work out my back, right, and I go to and I go to do a deadlift, my lower back, my back can't, So it's having that balance between muscle groups and the biomechanics there as to like proper form. Again, correct movement patterns. It's going to reduce the wear and tear on your joints if you're moving correctly. Our body's pretty amazing. So, and I think the important part, like online, let's talk about, and this will help our coaches, right? How do we do this online? And I've talked about this a couple times, is as you engage with your clients, we personally have two-way messaging in our app, whatever you guys are using out there. I'm sure there's some kind of video communication, texting communication you guys are doing. Ask your client, wherever they are in the world or in the US or wherever, if they're not around you, ask them to take a video of themselves, especially, I mean, I don't care if they're a seasoned athlete or a new athlete, but they're doing heavy compound lifts. Have them take a video of themselves so that you can check their form.
Absolutely. I agree. The only thing I would say on that is we're in a day and age where everybody has a camera with them. It's with them 24/7. And we've gotten into this trend of doing these personal videos in a gym of your own training or your own flexing in the mirror or posing in the mirror or whatever. So the only thing I would say on that is you want to get your clients to be able to take a video of them executing the exercise they're doing so you can see if they're doing it right or wrong. But just I feel I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't mention we've got to keep in mind the ethics of doing that. We don't want to include other people in there. We want to be cognizant of the fact that it's a public gym. You got people walking in and around you. You don't want to keep people from using some of the other equipment because you've decided you wanted to bring in your camera and your tripod. We've got to have respect for these other folks that are in there and do it in a manner that does not prevent other people from being able to freely use that gym the way they want to. You want to get that video and you want to make sure you're doing it right, but not at the cost of the disrespect of somebody else.
Yeah, there are gym rules, there are gym laws, there are gym ethics, right? And everyone should be up to code on those. And I agree with you 100%. And here's the other thing about the phone too. We could dive into it real quickly. Is take a video of yourself, like John mentioned, like proper timing, right? But you don't need to film your whole workout, especially not every time. Like I fall victim of that too, where like I film myself, but I try to make sure. But a lot of times, what I'll do is I'll actually do my entire workout first. So I get that stimulus. So I'm not all constantly over checking my phone and distracted. I'm focused on what I'm doing. Again, a lot of this is mental. So like I get my entire workout and then I'll go back and film like a little segment. Like I'll do like one little lift and be like, hey guys, this is what I did today.
To review that one exercise. Right.
I really acknowledge you for saying that, is especially if you're newer to lifting and you're doing this, man, like if your coach asks you for, a form check, do a form check. But you don't need to film yourself doing every exercise. Right. Dude, that's distracting. Like you're in there to do work.
And the biggest no is you never, ever film, I don't care what it is, posing, flexing, anything in any of the locker rooms. You don't do it. You don't do it. That's just not right. So.
It's a bathroom, man. You're taking the camera.
I mean, I'm sorry. I feel like I got to mention that, but I think we've all seen that. So I think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, it is. You just don't do that. But yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. So like regularly check your clients, ask them for videos. Obviously in person, you're going to be there. But like, here's the other thing. You're doing your client an injustice. And I find this so much with new trainers. Like your job is to call them out. Yeah. You're doing them an injustice if you're not calling them out. And I know that can be awkward sometimes because you have different types of clients, right? Some think they know more than maybe they do, right? Or you've created a relationship, you don't want to upset them, but you're not upsetting them. You're doing them an injustice if you're not calling them out on the form. That is the reason you are there. Is you're there to hold them accountable. You're there to help them out, and you're there to help prevent injury. So.
And I'll tell you what, I've had clients that I've worked for 2, 3, 4 years at a time, and it doesn't matter how long I've worked with them. It doesn't matter how many times I've had them do a squat or a lat pull down. There are still going to be those times when they're not thinking, they're not focused, they're having a bad day. They start to execute that exercise. They're using improper form. And I've got to stop them. I've got to pause them. I've got to correct it. And I've got to get them back on track. And a lot of times they'll say, yeah, you know what? Thank you. I wasn't thinking about it. I didn't realize I had something else on my mind. I mean, it happens. It happens to me. It happens to all of us. So you're right. You're doing them a disservice if you don't, regardless of how long you've worked with them, how much they know, how long they've done it. You and I, we do this for a living, and we can still screw up the form if we're not paying attention. So it's important that you even check with each other. You check with your clients, you check with other trainers, other coaches, just stay on top of it. The idea is not to get injured while you're in there.
100%. And the most common things to watch for, you're going to talk about rounded backs, deadlifts or squats, knee valgus, right? That's when the knees do the caving in during lunges or squats. And then you got your overarching or collapsing spines during like overhead lifts and stuff. So just watch out for those guys. That's the main concerns you're probably going to run into most.
And breathe.
Again, a lot of those come from underlying issues like core strength and like John and I mentioned earlier, like you're talking about knee valgus. A lot of times that's quad or hip abductors, or there's other things besides. Just because it's the knee that's caving in doesn't mean that's where the
problem is.
That's the problem,
right?
So, and we already talked about this, so we'll kind of wrap it up. Is like educating clients on warm ups, dynamic movements, cool downs, recovery protocols. Proper hydration, nutrition, post workout, all that kind of stuff. Let's talk about this and then we'll really wrap it up. It's like when to refer out, like knowing your scope. And this is a fine line that we got to walk with nutrition as well as injuries, right? So like recognizing when injuries or pain fall outside of your expertise, right? And understanding your legal and ethical responsibilities as a coach, right? So like a persistent or sharp pain that doesn't improve with rest, like when to recommend medical professionals would be persistent or sharp pain that doesn't improve with rest, swelling, bruising, or instability of a joint itself, and then neurological symptoms, right? Numbness, tingling, loss of strength. These are not good things, right? So again, there's a difference between being sore and actually injured. But like if someone is persistent or sharp pain that doesn't improve, like that's out of my scope, right? Swelling or bruising, instability with a joint. That one's kind of hit or miss, right? I guess that's over a period of time, right? We all get swelling, bruising, or instability, but again, if that's over time and that's a continuous an issue that continually rising, then like again referring out. But like neurological symptoms, I think that's huge. You start to get that numbness, tingling, loss of strength, especially for like prolonged period of time. We've all had it, like we're like, oh shoot, like my shoulder injury, right? And you get kind of like a weird numb tingling, and then you kind of move your shoulder around and it pops. Sometimes you got a pinched nerve or something and it goes right away. But if that's a persistent thing that's happening, then like yeah, like we definitely want to
yeah. Well, you hit on the main point. It's a really kind of a touchy area. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced where somebody will come in, and you've been doing this a long time, and somebody will come in and they say, hey, Alex, I've got this pain in my shoulder and I do this and I do that. You and I both know there are certain ways we can, through our education, kind of make an educated guess as to whether they may have or may not have a torn rotator cuff. But I tell everybody the same thing. I say, look, it's a possibility, but you got to understand, I am not a doctor. I'm a personal trainer. I can only give you my experience of what it is. But the bottom line is you need to go seek medical attention. They get paid far better money to be able to determine and to guess at what that injury is. And they go through far more education than I do. I can guess it might be this, but I'm not a doctor. I might have played one on TV, but I'm not a doctor. So you need to go seek medical attention. I mean, I think, it happens all the time. A lot of times people come to us because we're in that industry and they think, hey, look, I've got this pain right here. Can you tell me what it is? No, I can't. So, they really do need to seek medical attention. Is it ongoing? Because if they don't, then you're going to run into a reoccurring injury. And that's not a position they want to be in.
Right. And bottom line, you might lose that client too. It's a bummer, but like they're kind of counting on you like, hey, how come you didn't tell me to go see a doctor? Everyone likes, not everyone, but a lot of people like to like place blame elsewhere, right? So like, and you are there to help them. You are there part of their physical and their mental journey, right? Bettering their life in that aspect. And part of that is being knowledgeable enough to know like, hey, John, you should go see a doctor, right? That's all I have to say to you. Like, you know what? That's out of my scope. I could take a wild guess as to what it might be, but like I don't want you to go off that. So maybe we should go check a doctor. And kind of leading into this for your business, right? For your business, we're talking specifically to coaches here, but like building a network of trusted physical therapists, chiropractors, and sports medicine doctors, and you become friendly with these people and you refer them. Guess what they do? They refer you, right? So like you say, hey, Dr. John over here, he's the best chiropractor in town. I want to send him over to you. I want you to go over to him. You and Dr. John get a relationship, right? Dr. John has a guy that comes in one day. His back's a little messed up. He wants to switch trainers. Hey, I'm going to send him over to Coach Alex. Coach Alex who's been feeding me people as well. You build this and they're going to build your network, right? So it's not a bad thing to refer out. And everyone's like, I think a lot of trainers are like, oh man, like we can get through it. And people are just thinking about the almighty dollar. Right. No. And they're like, oh man, I can't lose a client for 1 to 2 weeks. I can't lose a client for a month. But like you're going to lose a client for a lifetime if you don't help them on the right path.
But that also comes back to what we talked about earlier, and that is the responsibility of us as coaches to ensure that they're doing things as properly as they can. Making sure they got the right form, making sure they're breathing, making sure they're executing the exercise properly. That's going to come back on us so that we can help them avoid that. I think you and I would both agree that if you get somebody that's been looking to get into a gym and to start exercising, to get into shape, and they start going and they start seeing results, they're starting to feel good. The worst thing in the world that can happen to them is for them to get an injury to put them out for 2 or 3 months at a time, because it's so discouraging that there's a really good likelihood they're not going to come back. And you've had them on the road to getting into better shape and having quality of life, to helping to give them an improvement in their life. And that's not what we want to do. So like you mentioned earlier, it's so important for us as coaches to try to do everything we can to make sure they can avoid that
For sure,
as much as
for
possible.
sure. I agree with you. That's our job ultimately. Is just help people, help them. That's what we're here for,
Yeah.
guys. So just hopefully, again, hopefully you guys were able to take some stuff from this. Really great points, John. You're like super educated on this. It was a pleasure speaking with you on all this.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been fun. I enjoyed it.
So I mean, like key points of what we talked about. Again, would be like the different main injuries, top 3 injuries to focus on. You got lower back, you've got knee, and you've got your shoulders. Those are common ones we see in this industry. Different workarounds, right? We're talking about mobility. We're talking about proper form. We're talking about all these things to prevent that, as well as what to do when you come back from injury, right? There's different types of workouts, even during injury or post-injury, coming back that are less impactful on the joints. As well as different stuff as far as when to refer out, right? So I mean, you got times that, hey guys, it's out of our scope. Let's refer this out and let's create a network of people to help them that other people are helping, right? So in your turn, you might get more clients that way too. So yeah, I guess I appreciate you guys. On our next episode, John and I probably will be speaking about programming. We'll probably be doing a little bit more like advanced programming, something to that nature. Be talking about all the fun types of sets, drop sets, super sets, giant stuff.
Whole host of ways to torture yourself.
Maybe we'll talk about some aerobic training. The stimulus the client's looking for, different types of programming we can offer clients based off their stimulus. We'll talk about RPE, what that means, and the different rates and how it's different for everybody, right? So we just talked about that a little bit earlier. Maybe we'll dive more into are we have more type 1 or type 2 muscle fibers? Are we more strength or endurance, right? So RPEs can be based off of that too. So it'll be a good one. So I appreciate you guys. Any feedback, anything you guys can give us, any engagement, feel free to drop us a line. So thank you guys. Thank you, Coach Don, for being a part of this. And
thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll catch you.
If they need to get a hold of me, they can get a hold of me at jkellyfitnessinc@yahoo.com. Any questions they might have, feel free to contact me.
Perfect. Thanks, John. I appreciate you, man. We'll catch you.
All right. Thank you.